Of course, I'll put it into our chat group of the link so you can share it with people and friends. And then it will also go on my podcast channel. It is coming on now on board. Just in case someone pops on. I really appreciate all you gentlemen wanting to come on and talk, because it's important that we do this. And I just got off a forum with a father inaugural business forum for Black business people. And that seemed to get some good traction also of the format. And I think I'm going to use that, because you could pay for it too, where people can pay for the to get on the to watch us talk. So this way we can earn some keep, even though I know we'll do this because it needs to be done. But if we can for the to get on the to watch us talk, so this way we can earn some keep, even though I know we'll do. I gotta shut this off so we don't have an echo. And
I was gonna say, all right, Teddy Riley. Let's get together.
Malik, you're a clown, man. You're a clown.
From Brooklyn. That's what they do in Brooklyn, man.
See, you know, they think they own music, and they don't own, you know, they don't own nothing.
Yes, I agree with you, Paul.
The Boogie Down Bronx, baby. Boogie Down Bronx all the way here.
Don't forget Queens, though. Don't forget the Q Borough.
You cue balls, man. You guys got one train in and out. You think you guys know something. All right. Thank you guys for joining Black Coffee Conversation. You're here. Everyone introduce yourself to the community. We are actually live on YouTube. Of course, this will be on our podcast channel too, iHeart and iTunes Radio. That will be coming out. And you can also get the representation, so you can also share it on your links. I know we have a couple more people that may be popping on, but I'm glad to have the Black Coffee Conversation. So Malik, you're to my left. Introduce yourself, my friend.
All right, this is Malik Means from Brooklyn, New York. I am a director of a program called Maranatha's Leadership Academy. And what we do is we mentor young men. Been doing it now, probably going on like over 10 years. So welcome, gentlemen.
And Chad, you're off to my right. And Chad, please.
My name is Chad DeJarlet. I'm the owner of Next Level Performance. So I do a lot of coaching and mentoring and networking with a lot of other businesses and people in the area to make sure that we can get these youth and other people in the right direction in positive ways. So I'm happy to be here and meet some of you guys.
And Woodsy, you're come on in. I think your mic is on mute, so correct that. Woods, there you go.
My name is David Woods. I am an English teacher, high school English teacher. I've kind of founded various groups, and I'm a new politician now in my small town in Washington, North Dakota.
You got to say that with a little bit more oomph. Being a politician, you got to be like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm here for you. And
yeah. I'm new to this game.
And then Russ, please.
Yes, Russ Williams. I'm a transitional coach that inspires individuals in their transitional journey. I'm also a speaker. I'm an author, and I'm the host of the show Transition Tuesdays, seen each and every Tuesday on Facebook Live. So hopefully everybody check that out. And I'm glad and I'm ecstatic to be here today.
And Big Chris, Mr. Yes, Jump Shot himself.
Chris Williams, motivational speaker, positive energy coach. And I run a speaker-driven business where I'm a mentor and I do a little acting. author also. And as Russ said, I'm ecstatic to be with you gentlemen this afternoon.
So I was thinking about, we had talked about mentoring before in one of our conversations on Black Coffee Conversations, and this is a male form. I want to actually ask you guys about trust and how did you establish your trust? I mean, this isn't open, but how did you first establish your personal trust with yourself?
I can take that. Well, I think you have to be open and honest with yourself first before you can be open and honest with others. So I think you just have to have that transparency in yourself to be open and honest.
Okay, Woodsy, what about you? Because you're an elected official, so you must have developed a sort of trust with yourself. Because it all starts with testimony. I know we were talking about off air about you being in Alaska and Anchorage and things like that. So you must have, as a Black man, you must have developed. How did you first develop? Like, hey, I'm a Black man and I trust me.
I struggled with this because it was kind of difficult because I didn't have, in all honesty, I didn't have self-worth. I always felt as though I was either the young buck in a room or I wasn't qualified to be in the room. And I think going to college in a predominantly, well, in North Dakota, so predominantly white, when I started to see that people actually started to look to me for leadership, I think I gained some self-worth there, which is a totally weird thing to say because you should have self-worth, you know what I mean? But for me, I never did in any form that I was in. I always thought, don't make waves, stay under the radar. And then people uplifted me. I've always had male mentors in my life of all ethnicities, so that helped as well.
And Russ, what about you?
I just answered that earlier, but again, you have to have that trust in yourself that we talked about. But like for me, I think growing up, I had people who instilled confidence in me, and I think with that trust comes confidence. So I had a older brother who was 11 years older than me. My dad, I had that person in my life. I had a lot of uncles in my life. So these people instilled and trusted in me and the confidence for me to have trust in myself, and that in turn instilled me to have trust in others.
Because I think one of the breakdowns, and you guys, obviously, this is about not correcting, but I think one of the breakdowns that we can stem this tree off of, that we having this Black Lives Movement, I got my t-shirt on and this whole bit, but the issue is that Black community is so mistrusting. And I think that has a lot to do with, we never trusted our own selves. If you were never taught to trust yourself, I don't see how information that we give out today, tomorrow, last week, or any other time that we can trust moving forward together as a unity as Black men.
See, you know what? I think the Black community is dealing and has dealt with a lot of trauma.
Okay, I agree.
That's been instilled through systematic oppression.
Yes.
So let's just put that out there. I know personally, confidence has come from organized sports, right? People putting you in positions and teaching you discipline, and overcoming obstacles in adversity. That's the first thing. Once you pass that, being involved in organizations, whether it was student government in college, getting leadership positions in your job. So I think you kind of start gaining confidence and trusting your instincts because you see it paying off, right? And I think mentoring kind of led to being in a position, a blessed position, and saying, how did I get here? Knowing that you didn't get here alone, and having a responsibility to kind of give back. Like I have a saying, iron sharpens iron. So I want to be a blessing. I've been blessed, so I want to be a blessing to that next person.
I think in addition to what Malik said and the other brother beforehand, Russ, and I believe it was Chad, I'm not sure, but I think it's important to understand your flaws, learning from your mistakes, because oftentimes we beat ourselves down when we make mistakes or we have issues or we go wrong. But I think true leaders really learn from their mistakes, and then they're able to, as Malik said, become mentors, and help and train others. So they may not fall into that same trap. And I always say this as a speaker, most important word in the English language is we. We always focus on ourselves so much, but you can't do anything really successful without other people. That's why being a mentor, having forums like this when you discuss things, because your opinion is not the only one that's successful. Other people can do it certain ways and be successful. That's why I love the discussion we were having previously about somewhere else, South Dakota, North Dakota. So if you're from New York, you're from Florida, you're from somewhere else, that's almost mind-boggling, trying to figure out how you would be able to handle yourself in that situation. And you guys have made it clear, yes, you can be here and do very well. So understanding that you can be successful and you can make mistakes and learn from it and help someone else. I think that's so important. And that builds that trust that you need.
But I think as Black men, and I see it as Black youth, and I see it maybe even not, and I wouldn't say I saw it in myself because I was such an inquisitive child, and I didn't mind making mistakes. Like you said, we got to open up that thing, but we got to learn how to ask for help. And a lot of young Black people or older Black men, they're like, nah, man, they want to hold this exterior like I'm good. Nah, nigga, you are a mess. And you need help. How can I help you? No, I got this. And you're like, oh, I asked. And I think that's how we move away from that brother who's like, he needs us. He may not know it, but he's got to learn how to ask for it. And I think that type of spirit, the only successful people that have had it, and it's sad to say, the few out of the many has said, help me, I need help, show me, and I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of wisdom when you're able to ask for help. Unfortunately, our system has taught us that you shouldn't ask for help. Our school system says you have to get great grades, you have to get an A, you have to get all the answers right all the time. So if you get something wrong, you're a failure. But then you get out of the school system in business, the most successful people are the ones who've made mistakes and learned from it and ask for help.
Yeah, I can attest myself as a personal experience with that. You know, as a male, you don't really have that blueprint for that trust and that success. So, like you said, those experiences, those trial and errors, those things that you do through life kind of forms and shapes, and then those people who attach to you to give you those lessons. Just an example, my gym, I didn't know at one point if I wanted to do this, but so many people came to me and said, Chad, you have this gift, you should share it. And I was so focused on my personal goals that I didn't see what I had to share with everybody else. So when I had a few people like David and Bruce Yagi and people pull me aside and say, hey, we can help you do this, and know that people wanted to help me do that, it gave me such a sense of confidence that it pulled something out of me to bring that purpose and that passion and create this gym, which has been an amazing facility for mentoring, teaching, networking. So you almost have to be humble to take that help and learn that you have more inside you that you can give.
You know, Chad, I want to, this is directed at you because I know you so well and so personally, that because I'm thinking of myself as a young Black boy or even a young entrepreneur person who sits in their room, wherever they sit and wherever space they're in, saying, I think I have a gift and I think I can, but no one tells me I can. Then why would I?
Yeah. And that's exactly where I was going from. You know, I think I got so focused, and I could probably say this would be other people and other kids too. You get so focused on what your individual needs are that you don't see the outside aspect that I can help this kid, or I can help this other adult, or I can connect these two people and make a greater circumstance for them. So when you're able to kind of come out of your own shell in your own box, and somebody gives you that confidence, like Bruce Yagi was kind of that person for me. He just kept on me. He's like, Chad, you got this gift, you should do it. And then other people started to jump in, and then things started happening, like funding, financial stuff that I'm not a super wealthy person, but other people had that belief in me to help fund my vision. And once those people showed me that, it was almost a different person that transformed me into being able to do these things for the community, being able to work with Woodsy now with his political aspects. We have so much that we can do as Black men for our minority students that we just got to find that gift inside, open up, and let it ride.
That's key. Like, you know what I notice? I come across this a lot, and I call it the sensitive thug, right? So you always see that young man who's the exterior is tough and hard, but anything you say to him, he's reacting to it. He's sensitive. You can't really criticize him, right? And that just tells me there's a lot of pain there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really important. Chad just mentioned somebody believed in him. Somebody told him, yo, I see this gift in you, right? And I think that's our role. We have to be able to impart into our young people, let them know that we see you. We see beyond the hard exterior. We really see you, right? And let them know that they are special, because they're not hearing that a lot. A lot of the young men I deal with are coming from single parent households, and they have this mother who's probably working to provide, but she doesn't have a lot of time to nurture, and they don't have a lot of positive male role models. Their role model is the athlete or the hip hop artist. And whatever that image of hard and tough is, that's what they want to be. They want to be a man, and they don't really know what the definition of that is. So whatever seems correct to them, or whatever we're promoting, whoever has the most money, that's manhood to them. And I think it's our job to kind of step up and let them know there's other opportunities out there besides rapping or athletics.
Right. I totally 100% agree with that. What I tell my students, who, I worked at alternative school, for the record. It is starting more and more in Fargo to deal with minority students. And I say to them, nothing has killed more dreams than street cred.
Yeah.
So if that's where you want to go, that's you, that's fine. But as mentors, as Black men, I always look at it as we can go about it two ways. We can go to the person and say, hey, I see you. You're not fooling me. I know you're smart.
Right.
You got people following you around the hall, so I know you're a leader. So I'm calling you out right now, and I'm telling you that I'm not going to leave you alone. There's that way to do it. But then I also learned that, there's a way of just being in a position where other Black children can see you and see that you're a normal person, but you're a doctor, you run a nonprofit, you run a business, you're a motivational speaker. You know what I mean? And just, they don't see that as well.
You're being, it's his political speak, so I'll talk for him. I know he called that kid a knucklehead and said, come here, you little knucklehead.
Yep, you got me. Guilty as charged. I mean, and that is the beauty about being Black. I'm gonna be God's honest with you. I can go up to a kid and have a conversation that the teacher next door to me can't have. Pull that person aside and say, look, you're failed. Get your shit together. I see you. You're not fooling me. You're being a knucklehead, and you're about to end up dead or in jail. Now, for me, I'm like, look, you live in North Dakota right now. You already defied the odds as soon as you cross the river, as soon as you cross the border. And this ain't the place. This ain't the place. You got a good economy. You got people willing to pay for your education. You have all this other stuff. And, each state has their own thing. But I'm saying, I see you. I'm not too far removed from you because that was me.
Mm-hmm.
And let's stop messing around and get this money and get these goals,
What's interesting with what he just said, that you could call somebody a knucklehead. I feel like we've all been knuckleheads, right? And that's okay, exactly. We all have that, period in life we've been a knucklehead. here's the challenge though. It seems detrimental to be a knucklehead in a Black community, right? You could be a knucklehead in any other community and they're gonna overlook that, right? They're gonna be like, okay, that's the stage that they're going through. For us, we got this adultification with our kids where we
Yeah.
think they're older and wiser, and smarter than they are. And they're just adolescents doing what adolescents do, going through that knucklehead phase.
But Malik, I think we're talking about where we it's like, I know with my mother's mantra, and my father was a Black Panther who lived in Chicago, it was about living in the game, beating the system, making sure that you know who you are so you can get yours. So we gotta push this, like, if you don't got a dollar, you need to hustle. So I think it was that type of conversations that was more of adult instead of, hey, you go out and you ride your bike. You were like, we teach Jamaicans, like Black communities and the different Black cultures. If you're a Jamaican, be like, you ain't working? I'm 6. I've had 8 jobs since I was 6 years old.
Listen, I hear you and I agree with that. I think though that's systematic because we lived in a time, like obviously this is what we're fighting over now, where a Black boy, Emmett Till, can go walk.
He froze up on us. I don't know what happened to Malik's thing.
Right on a good spot too. He
Yeah, I
froze
know,
up.
right? Oh,
Until Malik comes back, because I'm living in Maryland now, and I went to the African American Museum, and speaking on Emmett Till, I was able to go in and view his casket that they have. And there's no film in there and all this other stuff, but you sit in there and you listen to the story, you listen to the conversation, listen to the preacher talk over Emmett Till. And I know me and my wife, we went in there and she was just bawling, and I was just like someone was standing on my chest. It was just because I do believe he was the start of the civil rights movement, because it was something that it was nationalized. And it wasn't so much sensationalized, but it was nationalized. We talk about, so the George Ford of our lifetime is not sensationalized, but it's been nationalized that this is happening, and we are traumatized. And that's why I think it keeps I'm glad we're having this, but it builds up how do we trust ourselves when we're so beaten? That to me, it seems to be a juggernaut, because we want young kids to trust us, but they don't trust themselves.
When I look at certain things, I always say, I live in 4, some people say 2, but I live in 4 Americas. I really do. You have to know your audience with each group that you're in, whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's at home with your boys. It's hard to function if you don't know who your audience is. So when I tell students, hey, you have to go out in the world and you have to find yourself, and you have to expose yourself to multiple people, to multiple industries in order to learn who you are. You can keep who you are. You can talk however you want to with your boys, but when you're other places, you have to consider your audience and you have to know your audience. And whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, I don't know. But we all, every last one of us, I know, have different lingo. Every last one of us have heard our mothers answer the phone a tad bit differently than she did when she talked to us. And that's just playing the game. That's just knowing who you are and considering your audience. And I don't think we teach our children that enough. Like, you can go and talk to, like Jamaican parents are the best example. My family's from Nyack, New York, by the way.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Woodsy, this is crazy. And I don't want to take this off topic, but I'm from Spring Clipping Valley.
Nice. Nice. But see, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. When we come from Spring Valley, And when you come from New York City, it is important to know what neighborhoods you're in and
Yeah.
what lingo to use. And when I'm in North Dakota, it's important for me to know what lingo to use. And when I'm in my professional, we are all like that. And I think our kids, our African American boys and girls are losing their identity, and they think what they see on TV is their identity, whereas they're multifaceted. They're beautiful in that. That is the beauty of being
Well,
Black.
Well, Woodsy, you know, and I know Chris is supposed to talk to this right real quick, because I don't know if we know who we are.
Yeah.
I don't know if we know who we are. We may know who we are with my relation to my brother,
Mm.
to my sister, but we don't know who we are.
You're right about that, Doc, because plenty of us have not been taught correct history. That's a given and that's a fact. I think it's important for us to teach our history to our young people. But as Woodsy was saying, it's important to teach young people code switching. As a mentor, we always go over that, being able to obviously speak with your boys in one setting. And when you leave this setting and go into the classroom, it's totally different. And I'll use a great example. Guys usually like to have on their hoodies over their head. So it's cool when you're with your boys. When you come in this classroom, when you come in a setting where you're around other people, take your hood off, take your do-rag off. It's not acceptable in this particular setting. Oh, why, Chris? Why? We don't understand. Because around different people is taken differently. We don't see it the same way. And we have to do a better job of explaining that, how important code switching is, so you're understood in different settings. But I have to go back to making mistakes. I think it's so important that we understand and learn that when you do make mistakes, you can get better from them. They're not detrimental.
But
We
Chris,
teach and we make that clear.
here's the pushback on that is, why do I have to be the monkey for someone else? How come I have to be the clown and they don't have to do that for me? How do we, because that's we as adults, we may know how to, like Woodsy said, be who you are and where you are. But you're talking to a young male, young Black male, and he's like, why do I have to be this and they don't?
And this is where our wisdom comes into play.
Okay.
Because we have situations we can explain to them, because I did it very similar to you, I may have lost a job opportunity. I may have missed an opportunity to develop a relationship, because this is a fact also. Perception is everything. Where you look and the way you sound is how people make a preconceived notion of how and who you are before we even do anything. What you look like and how you sound, I make a decision about you right off the hand. So if we can make that clear to some of our younger brothers, that happens, and put yourself in the best position to be more successful, go with that.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think in every situation, appearance and the way you act is your first representation. When I come into a building and someone sees me dressed to the nines and I present myself professionally, they automatically say that they can see that I'm coming as serious and I'm here to display the person that I am. You got to know those situations like everybody else has talked about. And also our system is built in a way that we as Black men, Black youth, Black society, we have to work harder, 3 times as harder. As a business owner here, I have to prove my credibility. And David and I had this conversation a while back. I have to prove 3 times more than the same person that's doing something towards and same something as I'm doing, to show them my credibility and my work ethic and everything is just as equal as the next person next to me. But because of my skin color and the way that people think in some areas and some positions, I have to work harder. So we have to show our youth and present those lessons to them, to show them that when you're in these situations, if you present yourself well, people are gonna look at you well. If you come in not looking good or doing something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their first perception. They're going to say you're a thug. You're not going to be coachable. You're not going to be able to be hired for a job. Those are the things that we have to teach our kids to transition to, because we have to work 3 times as harder. And it kind of sucks that it's that way, but we do.
But is it, because we've heard this phrase from the youth, it's not fair.
Yeah.
With the movement that's going now, or the spark, because I think it's more of a spark than it is a flame. With the spark that's going now, could we move away from it's not fair and they still have to do it? Or no matter where this spark goes to, we will always have to do it? I mean, how does this play out?
Well, I think in terms of that, Dr. Paul, I think, again, it goes about what we talked about earlier about being transparent.
Okay.
When you're transparent, you're showing the person, the person that you're mentoring, you're showing that person that, hey, look, number one, you did the work to find out who exactly are you. That parent that apparency, that transparency shows in that effect. And again, when you do that though, and again, it's a cycle that we all have to break, because us as older Black males, you leave yourself to being vulnerable and like kind of weak. And that's a cycle that we have to break, because if the person sees that you're vulnerable, sign of weakness, I think they can look at that like, hey, look, I think this guy is really being sincere here, so I can be able to listen to what he's saying. So yeah, we got to break the cycles as older Black men in terms about the vulnerability that we're showing, especially as mentors. And again, it's all about the transparency with that. And I think with the transparency will lead to other matters, but you got to be transparent. To answer the question that you had earlier, Dr. Paul, is like, who am I?
Hey,
Well,
can I jump in there?
Right.
Let me just mention this. I think like the transparency, but I kind of look at it differently. If I'm able to tell that young man, I understand you, like, I know it sucks, like this is effed up, but this is how you play the game. Right? It's like a coach, right? You may got a great street ball, game, but now you want to define it. You want to perfect it. It's like, yo, we're playing organized ball now. So we're running set plays.
Right.
You're not gonna always get to shine. It's the same thing. It's like, hey, I feel you, right? So during this, during this time, you gotta dress up. You gotta, cut your hair. You gotta have, be well positioned. At home in your free time, great. Be you. Be authentically you. But you got to play this game. If you want to win, you got to play this game and hear the rules. That's the real key to mentoring, letting young people know what the rules are, because who's telling them that?
You're right, Malik, but the only pushback I'm going to have about BU is that we have some of these athletes, they are what they need to be on the team and on the field, and then when they go home, they're a mess. And they need to be who we need them to be all the goddamn time, and not because when they go home and they're with their boys, they're like, you can't do that. You're going to end up on Facebook holding a joint and you're supposed to be starting next week. Dude, you can't do that. That is not who you can be. So is that part of teaching the game?
Well, I think that's mentorship as well.
Yes.
Right? Because there's life outside the court, right? And listen, we know how many athletes we have on here. I know Russ, Chris, Chad, I think you're an athlete. What do you say? You play ball, right? That athletic lifespan is real short. That window is real short. So you got a whole life after that. You may have like 10, 15 good years, including high school and college. After that, you got to transition to like something else. Can you utilize like the skills that you learn on the athletic field in your personal life?
Can you
those connections? Can you utilize that? Can you talk to people? Can you network? Can you interact with other people? I think that's part of mentorship, teaching young men that aspect, and really coming from, like Russ said, a real transparent part and say, yo, this is my story. Right? Flaws and all. This is my story. Like Chris is on him. Me and Chris have this debate all the time. Chris is a motivational speaker. His nickname is Uncle Smooth. And I'm like, hey, when you talking to young people, you too smooth because they think you got it good. He telling about his jump shot, but I'm like, every kid in that audience is not that. They're struggling. They don't even know how to make it, right? Be transparent. Tell them your pains, your flaws, how you overcame some stuff, because that's what they're going through.
Correct.
I was on a political campaign with Ralph Nader, and I was one of his scientific staff, one of the only Black men that traveled with him around the country when he was running for presidency under the Green Party. And I had this huge discussion with the staff members, with really his campaign manager, who I thought was a dick. But and the reason why I thought he was that is because he wanted Ralph Nader to be something else. Now, Ralph Nader is a tremendously rich white guy, very smart. If he changes his speech, it looks like you're talking down to people. And I always said that, I'm like, it doesn't work. It is not your fault. You are tremendously rich and you're very well educated. That's not a fault. That's just who you are. You just got to be authentic in yourself. And if people resonate with you, that's it. If they don't, they won't. And I think we got to do the same thing as Black men, is that we got to be authentic, transparent. And if they don't resonate with us, the difference with us is that we have to go, what do you need from me?
That reminds me, Dr. Paul, of a phrase I once heard. It says, be you because everybody else is taken. And that includes you as well. So you just got to be you, whatever you do, from mentorship to life. You just got to be you because everybody else is taken.
Yeah. But listen, being a mentor and dealing with young men, they don't know who they are. They want to be Jay-Z. They want to be Puffy. They want to be LeBron James. They don't know. And I think that's part of our job, is really working with them to let them know being you is perfectly okay. Right. If you're that kid in that class who's like a nerd, you like science, that's okay. But there's something in our culture where that's like being smart is not the cool thing, and that's what we really have to work on. Listen, I'm encouraged by
how do we get there?
The protest I see.
But how do we get there? How do we get that being smart is not good, or being a nerd? I mean, I don't understand, because I experienced it when I was a kid. I don't understand how we got there, or listen to different types of music. Because I've been a rock and roll kid for a lot of my lives, and they used to say, "You're not Black." I'm like, I know who Marvin Gaye is, but just because I listen to Led Zeppelin doesn't mean I'm less Black.
It's Malik, but Malik still hit it right on the head, though. That transparency is, even when I mentor, that transparency is major. Yeah. When I have students, they look at me, they see the body, they're like, athlete, right? Okay? And then they put me in that box. What they don't see is I got two daughters who they have me wrapped around their finger. Daughter walks in my classroom, they're like, the students are looking at me like, wait, who are you, guy? I listen to country. People don't believe it. And then I start listing off country people, and they're like, what? I like to draw on shoes. I like to customize shoes. There are different facets to who I am. And the students don't quite understand that, because they have this image that they have made in their head. They want that instant gratification. They want that fast money. This is how I see someone else get it. That's what I want to do. They don't see, the steps that Puffy had to take. They didn't see the failures that Puffy had to take. And they didn't see that, Kanye, I believe he went to college for like a year. I mean,
in Chicago State.
Yeah, his first album was College Dropout. So he failed, like, I don't know his grades, but he didn't go through those channels.
And I know it's comical, but we don't really know what Puffy did for Biggie and how he really got the name Puffy.
Right. Right. But I
there's
think
a lack of diversity, which you guys are hitting on, which is so important. Wizzy, I love what you're talking about, Malik also. Because when you don't see the diversity, you just assume if you're LeBron James or Michael Jordan, that's all they do. It's important that you see the background of certain people and their mistakes. And one thing as a trainer, and I train guys basketball wise, you always see videos of someone making all the shots on Instagram or Facebook. You had to miss a number of shots to make those shots.
Yeah.
You don't see that work. And the thought process is when you get in the game, you're going to make every shot. No, you need to miss them, but you have to take shots to make shots. And oftentimes we don't go over enough. Yes, there has to be some missing involved to learn and understand.
I call this, and I think we've talked about it before, even on the last panel, Woodsy and I have talked about it too. It's the ingredient factor. You don't make a pie without everything that's inside the pie. And I think our kids, they see their role model on TV, and they want to go from where they are immediately to where that role model is. The ingredients in between, they don't know they got to mix that up, experience that, know the failures and the successes to get to that point of being a tasty pie.
Right.
So we got to teach that. And then we have to also celebrate differences. The variety of gifts that we have. You may be a nerd and love to draw. Celebrate that. You can still be an awesome athlete. You don't have to be shy that you like to read a book or do those things. Celebrate those differences and show them that they can be all of those at one time, and then teach them how to do the ingredients in between from here to here. If you're willing to do all this to make that pie, you can be on top.
That's what I love what Chad's doing at the gym, because the gym, the track, whatever. Sports is like the ultimate equalizer.
Yes.
If you, when someone comes in Chad's gym, they look at Chad, see the size of his chest, and they're like,
oh my God.
How much can you bench? How do I get like that? What product can I buy? What can I get so then I can get there? And then I sit there and I watch Chad put these kids through workouts, and they are dying. And they're just like, I just never knew this much went into being successful at whatever craft that I want to do. I just never knew. And so to see them start from the ground and go, there's one, I mean, Chad talks about Bruce's son, to watch him go from this itty bitty freshman to now he's, powerlifting, and he's a dominant force.
I saw the videos.
Yeah, and he put that work in, and it's like, that is beautiful, and that's what we have to teach our Black children. The beauty is in the work. The beauty is in the journey.
Yeah.
So we know, say from here, this way, what we've talked about. I want to go back a little bit and to touch on the initial part of slavery. What I mean is the transatlantic and how it started. It started where tribes sold other tribes. And then anything that comes into America and how it got separated. So have we started mistrusting each other because of the tribalism that sold the other tribe? Is that something that's ingruent within us? That's something that we still have a genetic touch to, that we haven't really recognized, that we are still struggling with, that someone sold me out? Because what I mean is that we'll trust another white person before we trust another Black person. And then we have these stupid phrases like, he's on Black people time, that's why he's late. That's not funny, and it's sad, and it's sick, and it seems like, see, I know I couldn't trust blah, 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 blase, blase. So is that coming from there? What do you guys think?
I think personally it's like the crab in a barrel mentality, which is ingrained.
Well, that's a Black phrase. White people don't use crab in a barrel.
Well,
Can I say this? I'm going to encourage everyone on the call and everyone listening to read a book. It's called Stamped from the Beginning.
Yeah.
All right. I encourage you to read this book because it talks about racism and the origins of racism.
Mhm.
And and it's all systematic, right? It's tied in with capitalism. Listen, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a business. I'm a capitalist. I want to make as much as I can. I want to use my God-given ability to make as much as I can. Here's the challenge though. At what cost? What are you willing to do? Like you just mentioned, like a chat, Judge Jim, they come in and they see you, and immediately they're like, well, I want to be like you. How do I get there? What's the quickest way to get there? How do I cheat to get there? Right? Where's the integrity at? So I'm uncomfortable with saying, like, yeah, we had tribes warring. And what would happen is when you went to war with somebody, your prisoners, what did you do with them? They happened to sell them into slavery. But there was a system behind that.
Right.
And it was monopolized. It was like, monetized. It was like, I'm getting all of this money from that. Oh, cool. I'm going to keep doing it. Right. And that's how this country was built. It was built on free labor. Right. Systems had to be put in place to keep that system going. Right. So we had to be fighting against each other, because imagine if we came together, what would happen? We outnumbered like our oppressors.
But Malik, we made joke and we made comical about you being from Brooklyn, Bronx, Nyack, Breckenridge. We talk about our neighborhoods, and we're very much, we think that's
Prideful. We're prideful of where we're from.
Right. So
which is cool.
The only way we separate into unity is mentally. But if we don't know how to do that and open those wounds up and say, I can trust you because you're from Brooklyn. I can trust you because you're from Berkeley. I can trust you because you're from Oregon. It doesn't matter, but I trust you because I believe in what unifies us. Is it the color of our skin? Is it because we're males? Is it because we need to unify? But if we unify over what? It's not a language.
Shared experience. Look, Woody just said this, right? He's in the mall. He sees other Black people. What's the first thing you do? Give him like that Black. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a language that we have between each other, right? And what we have to do, and I think as mentors, we got to kind of show like that next generation is we have more things in common than we don't. So just because like I know, like, listen, I've never met Woody, but him being a Black man, in North Dakota, I know we have shared experiences. We probably could talk about certain things, right, that other people couldn't relate to. So we got to embrace that stuff.
But how do we get there as a youth? I think that's where, because you'll talk to someone and they're just so blocked. They're so stuck. They're so disconnected from themselves that how can I get them to unify?
Honestly, I'll go back to sports, right? I've played sports, I've coached sports, and you don't win as an individual, right? You win as a team. So what talents are you bringing, right? Listen, go back to The Last Dance, right? What did Jordan have to do to win championships? He had to say, I could take over a game and that'll make me look good. But if I want to win, I got to share the rock, right? I got to take advantage of, my three-point shooter. I got to take advantage of my center. And they may not all be as talented as me, but they all contribute in some way. So if we, instill that in our youth, like just because this guy doesn't have the same talent as you or the same interest as you, right? He's still valuable. And I think that starts with us, and I think as Black men, we got to really step up, because what's that next generation? What's going to happen? I'm encouraged by what I see with the Black Lives Movement, but I want to see more. I want to see less lip service and more action.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Malik. I think we definitely have to do a better job of focusing on the positive attributes rather than the negativity. And what I mean by that is, if we see another African-American male, the division starts because this person did this against me previously. This person has a history of doing this, what I've heard. And that'll harp or stay on our mentality rather than focusing on something good they've done. I'll give you an example of George Floyd. There's a young lady out there, I won't even say her name, who's talking about all the negativity.
You can say her name.
I won't do it.
You won't do it?
You can, I won't.
Well,
she's talking about all the negative of George Floyd. And that has nothing to do with
No.
what's going on. If
No.
you focus on that, your thought process could be, well, yeah, why were we talking about this guy? How can he be the focal point of this movement? No, sis, that's not cool. That's not what this is about. So if we do a better job, especially with us, in teaching young people, let's talk about more of the positive things. And that's my platform as a speaker. Positive energy is a gift. When we do that, we can see things in a different light that brings us much closer.
And I think also to piggyback on that, Chris, is we have to make ourselves more available, more accessible as well. That's the key, making ourselves more available and accessible. I think when you do that, you know, people see that you're taking a vested interest in them. And I think they will open up and be receptive to what you are giving, what you are bringing to the table in terms of your knowledge, because we can't be a hoarder with knowledge and information. We have that knowledge, we have to give that to these mentees. And that's the most important thing, but making yourself accessible. You have to be accessible in the cause.
And on,
Have you
and on
guys
that,
heard of-
you know, I just, when I look at my lifetime, and I think everybody on this panel can attest to it, there were minimum 5 Black males that made a huge change in our life. They may not have known each other, but they were there. And some held us accountable in different ways, but they were there. Whether it was the guy where I walked down the street and somebody would approach me for drugs, the local guy was like, leave that kid alone. He's in sports, he's going somewhere. Or it might have been a teacher, or it might have been but there were 5. And I am a huge believer in that each child needs 5 men, and whether they're a girl or boy, they need 5 men of color who can share those experiences. And like Malik said, be transparent with them. This is how I got there. This is what I did. These are the mistakes I made, as Chris said. I mean, it's a culmination of everything we're talking about. But as Black men, what are we willing to sacrifice for the youth? For me, I'm willing to sacrifice 7 years of my life getting this doctorate, because I know that if I can get 2 Black children to look at me in that light, I may not have talked to them, but if they look at me in that light, fine. I know that if I become a politician in a town that's primarily white, when a person of
Primarily,
color,
it's all white.
okay, sorry, I was being PC again. I'm sorry, but when I walk down the street and they say, that brother's a councilman, I mean, they can walk a little higher. Their chin's a little higher when they walk.
Right.
They can attain something. They know that they can attain something. So what are we willing to Are we willing to sacrifice our time for these children? And it just comes down to that.
Hey, can I say something? So I love what Woody is saying. I mean, you're the Barack Obama of your town, you know, and we need to see that, representation. We need to see it, because this is something that I stress. You only grow to what you've been exposed to. So we have to do a better job of exposing these kids to different cultures, different experiences, different people, because I may, one of my kids may see in Woody themselves. Oh, you know what? I can be, a council person, great. Right. And the other thing I want to kind of mention is the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yes.
Right. It's a system. They put a system in place to have us fighting against each other.
Yeah.
Let's pit light skin versus dark skin, house versus field. All of this stuff is systematic, because what would happen if we all come together and realize, hey, we have more in common than differences?
Amen.
So when we line out, and I've done this before, and I think you guys have too, just by being coaches and mentors, is that when we line out and we outline the system, if it's in athletic form, whether it be a play, we got to show you their system. And in their system, there are these gaps we may call them flaws, but we actually are going to call them opportunities. They're not flaws. It's just part of the system. In this system, there are gaps. And in those gaps, there's opportunities for us to score, for us to make a move, for us to make a play. So yes, understand the system you're going up against, see the gaps, see the spaces, and that's where you make your move. That's where you make your cut. That's where you make your play. That's where you make your block. That is where you got to use this to see the gaps. You know, I am not a New England fan at all, being a Giant fan. Not at all. But there's something you got to give Tom Brady when he's looking at the defense and he knows Wes Welker sees the same gap that he sees. He's not even talking about the play anymore. He throws it to the spot because he knows that he kind of, sometimes you see the play, he looks over there and Wes Welker's like, they're like laughing. They're like, I see it too. And they're like, and they go and the ball gets there and they're like, how did that? Because you see the space, you see the gap. And we as black men, black community, we have seen gaps. We have seen spaces. That's why they're always trying to say they're so, what are the words they use for black people? They just come from nowhere. They're so resilient. That's what it is. They're so resilient. We saw the space and we took it. You know?
Yeah. One thing I wanted
Doc,
to touch base.
I'm sorry, Chad. You go ahead, Chad.
Okay. One thing I wanted to touch base on was the unity part that you guys were talking about. For us to come together as a community, black men, youth, whatever, is a little bit of our pride. We got to knock that pride down a little bit and become selfless. So if you become selfless, then that outside world opens up a little bit. And I see what Paul is looking at. I see what Woodsy is looking at. And it doesn't matter if I'm light skinned, you're dark skinned. It opens up a different realm of unity if I knock my pride down and I'm able to open up selfless and see what the needs are of my community instead of just seeing my needs or my light skinned or my block or where I was raised at. Those things will open up if we knock that pride down. I see that a lot among black adults is that you may give them the head nod or whatever, but there's a little bit of animosity sometimes. I may be light skinned, you know, and they may brush that off, or you may be too dark skinned and I'll brush that off. That pride factor needs to go down. We're all human beings. Like we always say, get to know each other first. And you may make a family member, a great best friend, a new business partner. Those things can open up opportunities. Just like Paul said, those gaps are opportunities that we're missing.
And I think, guys, to piggyback on the sports analogy that we've been talking about the whole thing is you need to know, these kids need to know, and you need to know as mentors, you need to know your role. And when you know your role, you need to start in your role. Like for me, for example, I coached basketball before, and I had the kids down the line. I told them their role, and I told them how you can start on the role. I had one kid, I told him, I need you to score 1,000 points each game. He knew his role. Then I had another kid, I said, hey, the thing I need you to do is get water for people when they come out on the timeout break. I want you to star in that role. So I guess when your role is defined and you know which role you have to star in your role. And that goes for life in general, being a mentor or being mentored. You know, that's what it's all about. Know your role and star in your role.
I want that scoring role.
What was that?
I would prefer that scoring role rather than the water role. That's just me personally. I don't know about anybody else.
If you had that scoring ability, I would have thrown that on you. But
I'll take that one first.
there you go.
Well, Smooth, we talked about this before. You're an alpha.
Yes.
And we have to, you know, we talked about this before, is that we definitely alphas have to recognize who is not alpha. And we have to be able to be okay. They have to be we have to let them know that it's okay that you're not an alpha.
Correct.
Because and you don't have to be the king of the show to be the clown of the classroom to think that you're supposed to be popular, whatever alpha role you think you need to be in. So I think that's all those teachable moments. But I think us as black men, collectively black men, I love my panels. I love having panels. And it seems like, it is, I'm talking to the choir, but I want all black men to be like who we are talking about being, because we can only reach in our own space. We talked about changing in our space, making sure you do what you can in the space that you have. Chad and his gym and LP, and then Woodsy and the school, and being a representative, Malik and his nonprofit. I mean, we are trying to be what we can in our space, and yet keep unifying us and moving forward.
I think it's important for our communities to understand guys who are alphas. And I believe everyone on this panel is an alpha, just from what I've heard and see what goes on in our lives. But our communities see us connect.
Mm-hmm.
That makes our community feel good and be humble enough to listen. One of the more difficult things to do when you're alpha is to listen. Listen and understand. And I made this point earlier, that someone else's way could work aside from your way. And when our community sees that, they see us coming together rather than tearing us apart. Because when you do have alphas, it's easy to take sides. I'd rather follow Chris rather than following Doc. I like these principles. But when they see us come together, share ideas, that brings our community together. Mm-hmm. Again, division comes from within sometimes, but it starts outside. Like Malik says, it's systematic. They try to find so many different ways to tear us apart, but we have to be smart enough to understand we want to come together for the good for us.
Malik, I have a direct question, and because I know you talk about systems a lot, and this is why it's a direct question. When it comes to information, reading, hearing, absorbing sources, how do you think we are able to discern the source that is beneficial for the individual? Because I think that's confusing, specifically now when you have all these productions saying all these things, like the woman, Chris Smooth, you were talking about. If I did not know my other sources, I would listen to her and be like, huh, you know what? Right? And then there I go. So we got to fix that. How do we do that individually? Because it's nice that it's nice to be a mentor where we can come to someone of us in the panel and say, hey, Chad, I heard this. Is this true? And then Chad takes over.
Right.
But until that person asks that question, they got to discern it from up here and then here. How do they do that?
That's a good question. And I wish I had this easy, microwave answer for you to be like, this is it. But realistically, there's no easy answer to that. What I will say is this, right? It takes work, because ultimately, if you really want to get down to this, right, you should be reading like 5 newspapers a day. You should, because the New York Times, right? The Wall Street Journal, right? The conservative paper, there's all this information out there. Once you've seen it from different angles, then this is when you can digest it and say, okay, this is the narrative that they're trying to paint. This is the facts. All right. So from the facts, I'm going to make a judgment. I'm going to come up with an opinion. The way, I know I'm going to say this against systems, right? But the way this works is how many of us have time to do that, right? We usually kind of speak into our echo chamber. So I read the New York Times. So that's a trusted source for me, but they're not always right, right? I've tried to watch like Fox News, right, to see that angle on the story versus like CNN. But realistically, I'm running a business. I'm head of a household, right? Do I have that time to invest?
For me, I actually reach out. I do listen to a lot of news. But my little bit of gift is that I'm a fast reader, so I do read a lot. But I also reach out. I reach out to people who are in that space, or and I ask them, "What do you think of this?" And I wait for them to contact me back, and then we have that discussion. So to me, I'm always looking for that mentorship, no matter what, that partnership, that relationship, that family, that unity, because I'm always reaching out to someone and saying, I'm thinking this. What do you think? I had a great discussion with a white friend of mine who has been teaching since the 70s across the country. The guy is an amazing laureate and educator, and he started universities and been president of the universities. And we talked about the racial divide and how it encompasses into the white community and how they don't see us and they never can see us because they separate themselves from a moral high ground. And it's not because they want to, it's just because they can. So that's not something until they actually want to get into your shoes, never being able to walk into there, they will always look at it from a satellite point of view. And he was just saying there's no way around it for them.
Yeah. See, I'm a history buff, so I love discovering new things, like other people's cultures, right? So if you understand like the Irish history and Italian history, and Jewish history, you'll see that we have more things in common than no, we don't. The challenge is everyone's, everyone's like has a personal agenda. They're trying to, chase this American dream, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Are they really going to sacrifice like their pursuit of success to help you, right? Are they really going to like kind of take some of the privilege away from the future generations to help your generation? To me, that's an advocate. That's a friend.
Really quickly, food for thought, gentlemen. The average person reads one book per year.
Really?
One book per year. They only get past the first chapter. The average CEO of a Fortune 500 company, leader of a business, reads 5 books per year.
As an English teacher, that is 100% correct.
Well, that's crazy because so I've written 6 books. You mean nobody's reading these? I wasted all this. I wasted my time.
Doc, unless you got an audio book, that might help. So,
And I have always said, I'm biased because I'm an English teacher, but, reading books is where it's at.
Yeah.
The other side of what I teach is speech, so interpersonal and interpersonal communications. Now, to be able to digest the information, have a conversation with somebody, look at opposing viewpoints, and see that the truth is somewhere in the middle is a lost start. And I'm not even just talking about Black America. In America in general, you cannot have 2 people standing across the street from each other. You cannot have the Hatfields and McCoys standing across the street from each other and come to a consensus without name calling. I mean, we're there now. So it's really, I can see how it'd be really difficult for somebody to just, take some news and try to digest it and try to, sift through it and wherein lies the truth. I mean, that's a real problem that we have now. So if we're not reading and we're not holding forums, even for youth, where is our information coming from? Well, it's the gratification. It's coming from the internet. It's coming from, I can Google something really quick, find out what I need to find, and move on with my day. I think that's.
And you can put your slant on it also. I know
Yeah.
Malik sent me some interesting information a couple of weeks ago and really thought-provoking. If you think a certain way, obviously there's a lot of information that will assist in your thought process. And one thing I always throw in there, how about common sense? Have we gotten away from common sense? We don't use that as much as we used to.
Yes, because nothing's common.
Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on how you were raised. Listen, if you grew up and all they taught you is like the alphabet from A to D, and that was your belief. If you went out in the world and they said, no, there's E through Z, you would have a fight. You'd be like, what are you talking about? My mother, my grandmother, my whole family was wrong. There's something else. You would freak out. So that's our reality. We're working with people who have limited information, but they're comfortable in that information. Now you're coming along and you're not as familiar, and you want to challenge that. You're trying to destroy their world. They're like, wait a minute, you're gonna blow my whole world up, my whole belief system. I can't handle that. And that's what we're dealing with.
And the only person that Black men are allowed for their world to be blown up is by a woman. we will lose our minds when a woman. That's the only time we're like, fuck it, I believe something else.
I plead the fifth on that one.
Me too.
I think it was Chris who said, right? People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. Right. So I know in mentorship, the students and the kids don't really buy in until they know that you're committed. So they're gonna test you, they're gonna try different things, and they want to know that you're gonna stick around, you know, because maybe they don't have a male role model in their life and they don't know why.
It's the trauma. You know, we talked about this before. It's the trauma syndrome that we're in. And I had just said this in the last forum, the Father's Day forum. I thoroughly, and I believe this wholeheartedly, I think every Black male, if everyone in the Black community, they have trauma. They are traumatized. And if you don't seek help or mentoringship, you are dead wrong. If you think you can get through over whatever you are in by yourself when you are traumatized, you're absolutely wrong. I hope someone corrects me on this and says, nope, I'm traumatized and I'm doing great, because you're full of shit. Because first of all, you gotta get help. And that's mental health, that's spiritual help, that's mind help. You have to learn how to develop to be. And I don't care where it is. We can talk about the body. We can talk about spirituality. We can talk about the emotional mind. We can talk about the spiritual mind, the mental mind. If you're not getting help, you will stay broken, you will stay traumatized, and you will stay disconnected. And that's when the other communities will destroy you.
I'm not even gonna lie. You know, when I first got into education, I didn't even fully understand that. So I know that a lot of educators are going into education not fully understanding that. And you spoke from our community. I mean, it's like that in a lot of the communities, you know, and a lot of communities were better at getting their children the help that they needed in order to get past the traumas of the past. And we really haven't. And now that, you know, older and wiser, and I'm, you know, 20 something years into education, I totally can understand. Multiple students are coming in, onions, and I'm just constantly peeling, just constantly. And, you know, you guys are mentors, you guys all understand what I mean. It is constant. Yes, our children are broken. And I just wish that, you know, education could understand that. Because it would change the dynamic of everything. It would change discipline. It would change curriculum. It would change everything if we just understood that when a student comes through the door, they are broken from their past.
Yeah. And, you know, just to piggyback on like the momentum that's going on in our country right now, I think eventually down the line, we're going to be rewarded with reparations. And I think the great important thing that you talked about, Dr. Paul, is having part of those reparational process, not a monetary process, but a mental process, mental therapy to go to help these people, to help us in these reparations. So hopefully if that goes through, I think mental therapy is needed for everybody.
My only concern with that is, like, for instance, I agree with you, Woody, about, you know, mental challenges, but that's getting addressed in like independent schools and like boarding schools, right? You don't see a lot of us in those, you know, scenarios, in those institutions, right? So if little Johnny comes into the building and he's acting up, right? There's a therapist on campus that will sit with little Johnny to figure out what the problem is, because they understand that's not his normal behavior. But Jamal, right, he goes to the local overcrowded high school. There's no resources there for those kind of services.
So Malik, I did some mentoring down in Red Hook, right? And most people don't know Red Hook is. I was down in Red Hook, that's in Brooklyn, and it's a totally screwed up school. And I was down there for a parents teachers presentation, and I went into, we need to listen to our children and understand where they are at and not what we want them to go, right? So, and teachers are so concerned about taking you from understanding where you are, but making and helping you go to another place, right? But if the parents don't understand where the teachers are going, then there's a disconnect. And if the child wants to go to something else, then there's another disconnect. So we all need to get it. We need to not have parent teachers conference. We need to have parent teacher student conference, because not all of us are listening to the same conversation that we're having about a situation. And the principal was like, "This is great." So I was able to go to some families and some housing projects to talk with some parents because they didn't have the time to go to that conference. But so I went there, knocked on the door, and I said, "I met your daughter, blah blah blah, and she is this." And the parent was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." No, no, no. Don't be upset that you didn't know because you're busting your hump trying to work. I get it. That's why I'm here to talk to you and your daughter or your son about what we talked about. And here is help. And that's what goes back to what you guys said, that what are we willing to do? I think we all can be willing to do that and do that service to our communities. Yeah, absolutely.
You know who's doing a good job with this? Jeffrey Cannon, the Harlem Children's Zone,
Yeah.
right? They're taking it from a holistic approach where they understand you can't really impart into children, right, until you really fix the household. So
Yeah.
they're mentoring programs, they're financial programs for the parents. They have something called like baby college, where as an infant, kids enroll, the parents enroll, and they're both are learning at the same time. Because for the most part, we're dealing with broken children who come from like broken environments. And I know as a mentor, and I would just say this, as a parent, that's the toughest job I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm parenting or mentoring other people's children that had no say in how they were raised, right? They're with me for a short period of time, but then they're back into that environment. And
I would love to carry this over, but I know we got a bunch of things we want to do. I also want to see everybody back here next month. I'll let you guys know what day we can have another male talk and male conference, because I enjoy it so much. My wife is she's watching and she's just so happy that men can talk, and this is such a great thing and a great format. Chad, so I'll give everyone, Chad, go ahead. What do you want to say before we take off out of here, sir?
Just a little piece on the kids. Recently, my wife and I got into the foster care system, so I totally understand having someone else's child and being able to parent and get them out of those systems that they were taught and the negativity and the things that they had in trauma. So just an example is, you give them a good place, a good structure, good routine, but it takes kids a while to get into that groove. And they're not used to being someone being kind to them. So then they buck the system so they can go back to where they came from. So that's how it is going to be for the kids outside the community too. You're going to have to give them a little bit of trust. They'll build up, try to buck it, and then you just keep going. The more and more bricks you lay upon that, the better and better they're going to have.
Woodsy, you're next.
I don't know. I'm floored because I'm actually really happy to see a group of professionals come together and be able to have a conversation, have a civil, like really articulate conversation about things that are happening to our future and how we go about fixing those. So yeah. I just want to thank you all for letting me come in on this, because this is awesome.
It's a blessing. Russ?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. I love this forum and what it presents. I think the main emphasis is just to make yourself accessible, make yourself available, and just keep in mind that you can't hoard your knowledge that you have. You can't hoard the information. It's important to give that information on to others so they can prosper like you're doing.
Mr. Smooth.
And thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the invite. Never stop learning. Be a lifelong learner. As much as you think you know, you can always learn something new. The world doesn't stop teaching. We can't stop learning.
God bless, man. Malik.
So first, I wanted to say Happy Father's Day to everyone on this panel and everyone that may be listening. And I'm encouraged by this, by like the minds, like the Black minds, the fact that we're all coming together and willing to, invest in that next generation. I love you guys. Just everything that you're doing. This is a critical time for us, right? And I said this before, but out of Ferguson came Black Lives Matter movement, right? And now we see what they're doing now. I'm encouraged and I'm hopeful to see where we take this, where we head it as a community, right? So once again, thank you.
You said something, and I think that's a shirt that maybe someone can make. Black Minds Matter. And you just said it, because it's right. It's our minds. We don't take enough pride in what we bring to the table as a mindful people, because we're very emotional, we're very mindful, and then sometimes our brokenness gets in the way of letting our hearts open and letting our minds open. So our Black minds matter. That's awesome.
I got dibs on that T-shirt.
Hey, I'm gonna go up and trademark that as soon as we get off. So you got.
Well, if you do, get it made, because I don't have that resource to get T-shirts made and things like that. So that is such a, it's right there for us to have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
God bless you guys, and we'll see each other in another forum. We all have Instagram, and we're talking. Our messengers. So you guys have a beautiful day. Happy Father's Day and happy day.
Thanks, fellas.
Guys.
Have a good one, guys. Peace.